4K, and Michael Saylor is once again involved. But this time, did he get caught manipulating the market, guys? Because hours ago, Michael Saylor came out and made an interesting announcement that might have triggered Bitcoin pump, or it's probably the reason why we pumped. Because, of course, last week, we all were talking about how he famously sold 32 Bitcoin, and everyone thought it was over for MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. But today, all that has changed as Saylor just bought the Bitcoin dip that he potentially created. You know, at least that's the prevailing narrative here. That's what everyone's saying. It's like, yo, did Saylor cause the dip? And then he bought more Bitcoin at a lower price. Absolute genius mastermind behind this. But hey, we'll speculate a little bit. We'll have a little fun. It is Monday. We'll have a little fun on this. So anyways, let's get to the official post. So this morning, Saylor tweeted, Strategy has acquired 1,550 Bitcoin for $101 million to increase our Bitcoin reserve to 845,256. We have also increased our USD reserve by $100 million to $1 billion. And of course, as we were covering last week, yes, there was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of talk about, oh, you know, why is Saylor selling Bitcoin? Is this strategy capitulating, or is something more going on? And at least the prevailing reasons that we heard from Saylor and Fong Li and strategy at large is this whole idea of strengthening their balance sheet so that they can get a better credit rating, which I think personally is most likely what actually happened. Now, what is interesting is, of course, last week, the Bitcoin price tumbled. It was the second worst week drop since FTX. I repeat, the second worst week since FTX. That was last week. And look, it might be coincidental. Obviously, what's the saying? You know, correlation does not equal causation. But on the Saylor news selling, that was the start of the Bitcoin price tumbling. And then, of course, we went back down to 59K. Over the weekend, it did rebound. And obviously, you could probably attribute that to a couple of things. I think in particular, the biggest thing is the whole controversy or uncertainty around the Middle East. It seemed like there was a rebound because there was a official ceasefire. And then like an hour later, you know, there was more attacks going on. And then the price kind of rebounded a little bit. So I think that's probably what is going on in the broader Bitcoin price markets right now. It's the macro headwinds that we've been covering. But Saylor did buy. Price is up. So a lot of people are saying, look, did Saylor literally crash the price so he can buy more Bitcoin? And not just a little more Bitcoin. About 48 times the amount of Bitcoin that he sold. And then, of course, adds more dollars to his reserves to strengthen his case for a better credit rating. Now, there is a couple controversies that are playing out currently as we speak, but I'm going to start with this Fong Li tweet that he posted actually yesterday. And it is this. Of course, you know, Saylor does the orange dots, which is always a telegraph, a projection of what they're going to do. Every time Saylor posts this chart, it's going to be a Bitcoin buy. That's kind of what we've all connected the dots here. No pun intended, that when Saylor posts this, he's acquiring more Bitcoin. Now, Fong Li tweeted, and it's very interesting that he tweeted this because we did get the SEC filing in regards to this latest Bitcoin buy. And I think this is where the controversy comes in. Well, I think this is probably the real controversy. I know everyone is making the case that, you know, Saylor, you know, I'm trolling when I'm saying this, but that Saylor crashed the price to buy more Bitcoin. But Fong Li tweeted this: our corporate strategy, I guess, pun intended here, is to increase net Bitcoin and Bitcoin per share over time. Rumors otherwise are just rumors. And again, the timing is interesting. He did front run this announcement, or rather this second controversy here. And I'm using Yahoo Finance to really show you what is going on, because under the Saylor post, everyone's favorite Bitcoin hater, Peter Schiff, the gold bug, the you know, engagement farming anti-Bitcoiner, did tweet something interesting. And look, I'm not the biggest Peter Schiff fan, but from my understanding of this, he is actually correct here. So that is an interesting thing going on. Anyways, it goes, Bitcoin critic Peter Schiff said the purchase was made at the expense of existing shareholders of MSTR. Very convenient that you omitted the information that would have revealed that purchase was actually dilutive to common stockholders. He goes on to say the game is over. I don't think the game is over per se. I think this is just Peter Schiff engagement farming. But again, if you look at the filing, Saylor did sell a lot of common stock or MSTR, and it seems like that is how he funded this new batch of Bitcoin buys. So here is the filing, and you can see here that they sold 1.4 million MSTR stock or Class A common stock for $181 million. Now, of course, there was a $200 million buy, well, 100 million in cash, 100 million in Bitcoin buys. And if you look at it, I think from a year-over-year perspective, Phong Le is 100% right. They have increased the Bitcoin per share and their Bitcoin amount that strategy holds. So I think both of these ideas can be holding true, where year over year, the Bitcoin per share is increasing, which is what their strategy is. But in this recent round of Bitcoin buys and adding of cash reserves, I don't have the numbers from last week, but it does seem like he issued more MSTR stock. And by definition, I mean, look, I'm not a, genius TradFi guy, but my rudimentary understanding of this is they did dilute the common shareholder of MSTR. So I think there is a point to this kind of recent controversy. Do I think it's game over? Not at all. I really don't think that that's the case going on. And then on top of this, there's another interesting wrinkle that played out over the weekend. Remember the 32 Bitcoin buy? Well, it turns out that Strive or SATA has bought that 32 Bitcoin. So literally like no Bitcoin has left the market since we got this big announcement last week of Saylor selling some Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, okay. Strategy sold 32 Bitcoin, apparently to kind of booster their perspective or their chances in the credit rating to kind of prove that they can actually sell Bitcoin, because as of now, all of that Bitcoin that is on the strategy balance sheet is basically being marked up as a zero from the traditional credit ratings, from the Basel requirements. They're like, oh, they're never going to sell this Bitcoin, so it's zero, it's non-existent. Well, he's like, hey, we sold some Bitcoin and then we bought some more. Well, it turns out that Strive bought that 32 Bitcoin. So this last crash that we saw all of last week, all the people that are leaving the market, selling their Bitcoin because they think the Ponzi's over, this week we find out literally nothing happened. We find out that, in fact, another Bitcoin treasury company just bought the Bitcoin that Saylor sold, and then Saylor bought another 1,500 coins. Again, things we've never seen before, but obviously since we are in, I guess, peak bear market conditions, any little amount of selling, of spooking the market really spooks the market.
I think it was the news, right?
It's totally the news.
Let's address like the topic of today, like the title of today's video, right? Is it manipulation? I would say no. But is he playing the game? I would say absolutely.
Wait. I'm so glad you said this, because, hey, it's Monday, but I got a meme. All right, here you go, guys.
So like, what comes to mind was there's this very famous clip. I believe it was a Cointelegraph or CoinDesk interview that Saylor did. And what comes to mind with this specifically, and there was all these cryptic tweets coming out of Saylor too, where he mentions 32 Bitcoin and he's kind of trolling it and stuff like that. But what comes to mind was there's this interview that Saylor did where he was describing, listen, like, no matter what we did, like, we were announcing these buys and the price wouldn't go up. So what we decided to do one day was we decided to stop buying Bitcoin on that particular day. They didn't announce it to the public, and the price of Bitcoin went up. So it seems like what Saylor did, whether he did it consciously or subconsciously or whatever, is I think that he changed it up and he counter traded Wall Street, in my opinion. I think that the news of the 32 Bitcoin being sold was definitely the catalyst for the recent price dump. I think it scared a lot of people. And then what did Saylor do? Saylor took advantage of the price dip that he himself created with the news. Now, was that on purpose? Who knows? You could judge the tree by its fruits, though, right? Because that's actually what happened, right? He sold 32 Bitcoin. Everyone got bearish. Everyone's like, oh my God, Bitcoin's going to zero. And then what did he do? He bought 1,500 Bitcoin, right? So he ended up with more Bitcoin than before, which is the meme and the saying that we've been telling you guys. The most important thing is to make sure that you have more Bitcoin today than you do the day before. Now, that's addressing that part in particular. I can't really call that manipulation, right?
Yeah.
You can't really call that manipulation, but you could say that Saylor is playing the Wall Street game.
He took advantage of it.
Like Saylor out Wall Streeted Wall Street, right? And he was like voicing his frustrations on this podcast, basically saying, I don't know what the hell was going on. We were buying Bitcoin every single. We were making the announcement, and on the day that we didn't buy Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin went up. So that clearly someone is counter trading what he's doing. And then he made the ultimate move of saying, oh, we're going to sell 32 Bitcoin. It wasn't even like 1,000 Bitcoin. We're going to sell 32 Bitcoin. And then a couple days later, oh, actually, we bought 1,500 Bitcoin. Like,
genius.
So it seems like he's counter trading the people that are counter trading him.
Let's pull this up again. Oh, wait, wrong one. 5D chess by Saylor.
So it seems like, again, he's counter trading the people that are counter trading him. And it seems like he's been frustrated for a couple months trying to figure out, like, I don't understand. Like, we're making these huge announcements, like buying all this Bitcoin. It's not going up. And then the only day that we don't buy Bitcoin and don't announce it, the price goes up. Clearly, someone's counter trading him. And then the ultimate move was, hey, actually, we're going to sell some Bitcoin. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not, right? I always tell you guys about the stories in 2017, how news articles used to just pump the price of Bitcoin by like 50%. This is the type of news that would pump or dump Bitcoin by like 50%. We're here at the movie where only two pieces of news could really pump or dump the price of Bitcoin. It's Michael Saylor selling Bitcoin, or it's the Clarity Act passing, or it's the United States moving forward with the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. Anyhow, back to it. He absolutely, whether he did this on purpose or not, he ended up with more Bitcoin based on his announcement of selling Bitcoin. And it's interesting because he spent 2 or 3 weeks kind of like leading up to that, right? His CEO, Fong Li, was like going on podcasts. He's like, we might be in a position where we have to sell our Bitcoin. You know, Saylor built his entire brand on you never sell your Bitcoin, right? So it seems like he like did a jujitsu move, man. He used that momentum and he turned it around on everybody, right? And he ended up with more Bitcoin. Now, I do want to address the dilution part, because it's a very interesting topic, right? And I'll pull up some graphs, because ultimately what Saylor's responsible for is the increase of his stock. That's what people have to remember. What Saylor is ultimately responsible for, like we have to remember as Bitcoiners, we live in a bit of an echo chamber, ladies and gentlemen. We live in an echo chamber of an echo chamber. Bitcoin Twitter is not real life. Bitcoin Twitter is not the financial markets. As much as we'd like to think it is, it's not, right? And ultimately, if you judge Saylor based on his stock's performance, he's actually doing a really good job. And I'll get to the dilution part in a second. So when he started his Bitcoin strategy, his stock was essentially flat since the dot-com bust, and it was at $11.70. Even with the price of Bitcoin down 50%, his stock is at $127. It's like what? Like a 27x, basically. So from an investor standpoint, you're very happy with what Michael Saylor is doing. And you might not even care about Bitcoin.
Just do 5-year on the chart right
So you might not even care about Bitcoin price per share. You might not even care about that. What you ultimately care about is, hey, is my stock up? Now, I would make the argument that that's not a good way of looking at it, because the right way of looking at it is you should be denominating your net worth in Bitcoin, you shouldn't be denominating your net worth in US dollars. However, the vast majority of people, and this I could say with almost absolute certainty, are not buying MicroStrategy because they care how much Bitcoin they have per share. They're buying MicroStrategy because they see that it's a good stock to buy, and they see their fiat dollars or their portfolio go up ultimately, right? So even if you look at the crash from 2020 when he started the Bitcoin strategy to 2022, right? Even if you look at the bottom, his stock was still higher than before the Bitcoin strategy. It bottomed out at like roughly $14 in 2023. And when he started the Bitcoin strategy, his stock was at $11. So it was still up $3. Was it up a big amount? No, it's not up a big amount. But he was still doing his job fundamentally as a CEO. And then, of course, came the 2024 bull run, and his stock went all the way up to $434. So if you bought strategy, or it was called MicroStrategy when they started this, before they announced the Bitcoin strategy, no pun intended, so many strategies in there, you bought the stock at $11 and it went up to $434.
What are we doing?
That's a great effing investment, no matter how you look at it. Now, I do want to get into the dilution topic, because ultimately what Saylor is doing, and he just keeps rinse and repeating this, is he's diluting his stock to buy more Bitcoin, and it's just kind of like this hamster wheel, and he does it over and over and over and over again. Now, let's get into what I think is the most important discussion when you're looking at strategy is it outperforming Bitcoin? That should be the number one question, because ultimately your goal shouldn't be denominating your net worth in US dollars. Your goal should be denominating your net worth in Bitcoin. Once you make that mental switch, your life gets easier. Everything gets progressively cheaper over time. Everything around you, whether it's real estate, whether it's that car that you want to buy, whether it's food, everything gets cheaper on a Bitcoin standard versus a dollar standard. So that's why you should be denominating your net worth in Bitcoin and not US dollars. So that's the big question. Has Saylor's stock outperformed the price of Bitcoin? Because that's what matters. If you're a Bitcoiner, I'm not talking about if you're a stock investor, but if you're a Bitcoiner and you sold your Bitcoin in order to buy strategy, ultimately, what do you care about? Is strategy outperforming the price of Bitcoin? Because if it's not, then it wasn't a good trade, right? So let's talk about that specific discussion, right? So strategy, if you bought strategy,
can you zoom in?
If you bought strategy 5 years ago compared to buying Bitcoin, you'd actually be up 46.13%, even after a 50% drawdown. So when I hear these discussions about dilution and, Bitcoin price per share, et cetera, this is the only number I'm looking at. I'm only looking at this number because if I were to sell my Bitcoin in the hypothetical situation and I sold my Bitcoin in order to buy another asset, that asset has to outperform the price of Bitcoin ultimately. And whatever financial shenanigans he's doing in the background, ultimately, this is the number you should be caring about. This is the number you should be paying attention to. And shenanigans perhaps is a too strong of a word. Whatever financial engineering he's doing in the background, to me, I wouldn't care. Why wouldn't I care? Because I'm looking at this and I'd say, hey, listen, the reality is that strategy has outperformed the price of Bitcoin, for better or for worse, for the last 5 years. It's outperformed the price of Bitcoin by 88% in the last 3 years. Now it is a bear market year, and ultimately what these treasury companies are looking like is that they look like leverage plays on Bitcoin. What does that mean? That means if the price of Bitcoin goes up, their shares probably goes up higher on a percentage basis. If the price of Bitcoin goes down, their stock price probably goes down significantly lower on a percentage basis. So as you could see, this last year, strategy has not outperformed Bitcoin whatsoever. It's actually down 43% against Bitcoin in the last year, right? Now, if we zoom out a little bit more, let's talk about the other assets. And I think that this is where I think a little bit, I wouldn't say depressed, but I think this is where it's caught a little, it's caught a lot of people off guard, right? So in the last year, the NASDAQ 100 has outperformed Bitcoin by 136%. This is where you're getting your texts from that uncle that's like, dude, the S&P maxis are like, dude, like, what are you doing with this Bitcoin stuff? Like, I'm absolutely wrecking you right now. And you know what? In the last 365 days, they've been right. If you look at the S&P 500, the last 365 days, it's up 117% against Bitcoin. If you look at gold, the thing that all Bitcoiners dream, getting to gold market cap, $1.5 million per coin, gold, the metal that doesn't move, that's really heavy, the really shiny thing that we all make fun of as Bitcoiners, it's up 126% against Bitcoin in the last 365 days. So, if you zoom out, though, it tells a very different story. It's kind of depressing as well, a little bit, right? But if you really zoom out, again, it tells a very, very different story. If you look on a 10-year time frame, everything is down against Bitcoin. It's down in the 90s to high 90s. The dollar is down 99% against Bitcoin. Gold is down 96% against Bitcoin. The S&P 500 is down 96% against Bitcoin. NASDAQ 100 is down 93% against Bitcoin. Strategy, I wouldn't consider it fair to add it to this because, again, Bitcoin strategy really started about 6 years ago or so. So that data point doesn't really make sense there. Now, on a 5-year time frame, and I know we're picking dates right now, so this is kind of unfair, right? But this is the reality, right? On a 5-year time frame, strategy is up 45%, meaning if you would have bought strategy 5 years ago, instead of buying Bitcoin, you technically have 45% more Bitcoin if you sold your strategy in exchange for Bitcoin than if you just would have held spot Bitcoin. NASDAQ 100 tells a very similar story, quite depressing, 29% on a 5-year time scale. The S&P 500, 10%, and gold, 35%. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, if you would have bought Bitcoin exactly 5 years ago versus buying gold, gold would have outperformed Bitcoin by 35%. Now, to be fair, and it's very important to mention this is after Bitcoin is 50% down from its highs. So I'm kind of nitpicking a little bit here in terms of the dates. These numbers would radically change when Bitcoin reaches all-time highs again. And again, the theory of the case is, again, Bitcoin outperforms everything, right? So to summarize it all up, right? Strategy is a levered play on Bitcoin. That's how I'm looking at it. I don't really care about the dilution or Bitcoin price per share or all of that type of conversation. If I'm an investor who denominates their net worth in Bitcoin, I care about one thing and one thing only. Did the thing that I sold my Bitcoin outperform Bitcoin? If it didn't, it was a bad investment. If it did, then it was a good investment because, again, I'm not denominating my net worth in dollars. I'm denominating my net worth in Bitcoin. Another caveat that I'll add to this, because I think it's really important to mention this, these dates, you're nitpicking them. You're nitpicking them because, like, we can get into that conversation. Bitcoin right now is below the 2021 highs. That's depressing. Like
yeah. And the 5-year CAGR right now is like 12 and a half.
There's no way. There's no way to spin that. There's no way to talk about it differently. There's no way to approach it differently. Like, if you bought the top in 2021, not even taking into account the inflation rate that has happened, the inflation that has happened between 2021 and 2026, you are down 6%, $6,000 on your investment if you bought the 2021 top. There's no way to spin it. There's no way to talk about it. There's no way there's no other way to describe it, right? Even Saylor, right? And this is where it goes back to his stock, right? Even Saylor, if you look at his average purchase price, Saylor is technically underwater right now. But if you look at his stock, and this is why I keep going back to his stock, right? Right now, Saylor's stock is worth more, 100, even though he's down on his Bitcoin investment, it's worth more than when he started his Bitcoin treasury strategy, where his stock was worth almost $12. Now it's worth $126. So even though he's down on his investment, he's down billions of dollars on his Bitcoin investment. Remember, markets are forward looking. The market is taking that into consideration, and they still feel bullish on his stock. They still feel bullish on the fundamentals of his company. They still feel bullish on what Saylor is doing. And there's no type of way that you can convince me otherwise, because the only thing that will convince me that the market has lost faith in what Saylor is doing is if that stock goes back down to $11. If that stock goes back down to $14, which is where it was, in December of 2022, if it goes back down to those prices, then we can have different conversations. But clearly, the market still values what Michael Saylor is doing, because despite him being down on his Bitcoin investment, investors are bullish as hell on his stock. It's up 26x from before he started buying, and he's down on his buys, right? So I think you got to separate the two, right? Because you can get into the nitty gritty and say, oh my, damn, Saylor's devaluing me. Saylor's, devaluing the stock, Bitcoin price per share. Like, dude, okay, get into all those, financial jargons and technicalities. I don't care. As a Bitcoin investor, the only thing I would care about, and again, I don't buy stonks, but if I did, as a Bitcoin investor, this is the only chart I would be looking at. Priced in Bitcoin 21. It prices everything in Bitcoin. Are you up or down in Bitcoin versus strategy, Bitcoin versus gold, Bitcoin versus the S&P 500, or are you up? Bitcoin's a hurdle rate. That's really what it comes down to, right? So again, is Michael Saylor using, complex financial engineering? Absolutely. But are his stock investors happy with whatever he's doing? The answer is 100% yes. And did Michael Saylor play 5D chess, scare out the market, selling? And that was a little bit of a troll, right? It's like 32 Bitcoin, right? Like, ooh, while he's buying like 1,000 a day. Did Michael Saylor play 5D chess in order to dump the Bitcoin price so he can accumulate more? Perhaps, maybe.
I don't really think so.
Is that a good, now that he knows he could do it? I mean, like, God, we're not only going to be dealing with Trump and Barron, we're going to be dealing with Saylor as well, because now he knows all he needs to do is, I sold 10 Bitcoin, and then he could just buy more, right? So that's my take on all this, guys. Like,
genius.
That's my take on all this. Like, if you're a strategy investor, like, again, you're crushing it. I pulled the numbers. I showed you guys the number. The data is irrefutable. If you're a Bitcoin investor, again, you should be pricing these things in Bitcoin. You shouldn't be pricing these things in dollars, right? Because they're going to tell you completely different stories. And your goal is to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. Your goal isn't your net worth in US dollars, right? That's not a good denominator. You should be denominating your net worth in Bitcoin, and your world will fundamentally change once you make that mental switch. It's a very hard mental switch to make. It took me a couple years to fully understand it. Conversations with Jeff Booth really, really helped. The way that Jeff Booth describes it is basically the only thing that could actually capture whether things are actually increasing in value or not is when you denominate them in Bitcoin, because it's the only thing that isn't controlled and manipulated by governments. That's the argument that Jeff makes. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's the general gist of it. So again, It doesn't really help if you denominate your net worth in dollars. And if you go back to the S&P argument, right? The S&P, you know, if you have a good year, right, it goes up, you know, 10, 12%, whoop-de-doo. But then you get into the inflation argument, right? So if it goes up 10%, like, what do you think inflation was in the last year, right? Like, forget about the numbers that they tell us, right? Let's talk about the real numbers of inflation, right? Because we all know that the prices aren't going up 3 or 4%. We all feel that the prices are probably going up like 10% a year. That's the reality. So if that's the reality, if the S&P 500 is going up on a yearly basis by 10%, and the real rate of inflation is 10%, then are you really up in your investment, or are you just treading water? And then, are these stocks actually going up in value, or is it inflation that you're seeing, that you're witnessing through the stock market? That's another great question, right? So the TLDR and the takeaway from this is Bitcoin should be your hurdle rate. To be perfectly frank, as Opti said, it hasn't been a great hurdle rate for the last, 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. I saw it over the weekend. Bitcoin's 5-year CAGR is like 12.59, and the S&P 500 was like 11.1 or something. So we're barely beating the S&P 500.
It hasn't been that great. Like, there's no other way to spin it. At the same time, we do have to take into account the fact that we are nitpicking, right? We also have to take into account, and this is why I've been so hell-bent on the theory of the 4-year cycle, and I've been saying since October, I don't think the 4-year cycle is broken, that if you look at Bitcoin historically from the 4-year cycle theory, Bitcoin is exactly where it should be in terms of it in a bear market year, right? So, but then and I think Joe Carlosari actually mentioned this, then Bitcoin kind of becomes like a trade, right? Because it's like, all right, 3 years green, great, fantastic. We hold on to Bitcoin. But if we know that it's going to dump on a 4-year cycle, what's the point? What's the purpose of holding it, right? But that's a different conversation. Our philosophy has always been
this. That's a risky trade.
That's a risky trade as well. But our philosophy here at Simply has always been the same. If you started listening to us when we started the show,
yeah, we ran the numbers one time. Right? I forget what they were.
It was Bitcoin was under 10,000 per coin. And if you would have stuck to what we've always advocated for, which is stay humble, stay solvent, stack sats, you'd be extremely happy right now. Because again, you would be buying every top and you'd be buying every bottom, but your average price would be fantastic, right? So again, I think that these numbers, and we're going to revisit them once we start getting into a bull market once again. Those numbers are all going to radically change. Right. I promise you that the S&P is going to be down against Bitcoin on a 3-year time scale. The S&P 100 is going to be down against Bitcoin. Gold is going to be down about NASDAQ. The NASDAQ 100 is going to be down against Bitcoin. Gold is going to be down against Bitcoin. Everything's going to be down against Bitcoin once Bitcoin goes into a bull market. But if you are a treasury stonk investor, what you should be looking at is my stonk outperforming Bitcoin in the last 3 years? If the answer is no, then you made a bad trade. Simple as that. But so far, strategy, if you guys have taken that risk of selling your Bitcoin and buying a stonk and leaving it on a centralized custodian of which you don't have complete self-custody of, if you decided to take that risk, you've been up on that trade. And that's the truth. That's the reality. Despite all the talk about, devaluing the stonk and the Bitcoin price per share and whatever, I'm literally just looking at priced in Bitcoin. What would have happened if you would have bought strategy instead of Bitcoin 5 years ago? And the data doesn't lie. If you would have bought strategy, you'd be up 44% against Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's super brutal. But I do want to add one more Saylor story in here, just since we've been talking about him, because there was another huge update with the stretch product that if you are a stretch holder, I think totally a game changer. So let me pull that up. Of course, what am I talking about? But the Stretch and MSTR shareholders have approved the amendment to move Stretch dividends from monthly to semi-monthly under the new cadence. The first record date, record date is June 30th, and the first payment date is July 15th. Thank you to every shareholder who voted. So we have seen that Strive move to daily payments on their, digital credit product. I guess that's the best, preferred stock product. Now, Saylor went from monthly to bi-monthly, so 2 times a month, which is, I think, revolutionary and a game changer in and of itself. So that's a totally different conversation than what we're talking about. But hey, we're talking about Saylor on Monday morning. We might as well give you guys all the updates here. But I know, Nico,
he's doubling down on the STRC.
When we saw this morning, you're like, yo, okay, crazy.
Yeah, so he's doubling down on the STRC. STRC isn't maintaining the $100. It's at 96.53 cents.
Yeah, it had a pretty big drop, and
so it's not maintaining. Yeah,
I think people got spooked with the 32 Bitcoin sale, and now it's going back.
This has happened before. Back in November 20th of 2025, it went all the way down to $92.79. Also, a little bit about Saylor, right? Saylor survived. I think it was like an 80 or 90% drop.
Well, did you see that screenshot going around that basically said that Saylor strategy was one of the reasons for the .com bubble burst? It's like, yo, Saylor, I was not aware of your game here.
I don't know any of
it. I think it was.
I don't know any of.
I don't know where it came from. It was like Claude, but
I don't have enough information to give an opinion on that.
In the face of the crash.
What I will say is, you have to judge the man by his experience, right? This guy survived. Strategy survived, and MicroStrategy survived. The .com,
it lost like 90% of its value.
Burst was brutal. The stock went from $11 to over $300, and it fell all the way down to $4.69. And he survived that. He remained the CEO. Not only did he remain the CEO, he remained the CEO for 20 years. 20 years of a comeback. That's like Count of Monte Cristo, Cristo type of like story. You can make what was he thinking in those 20 years in between, right? That's an epic comeback story. And again, he took his stock from $11.70 in July of 2020. He took it all the way up to $100 in the first Bitcoin bull run of 2021. And then it went all the way down to $14. And then he took his stock all the way up to $400. Talk about a comeback story. And the reason I'm bringing this up, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're betting against Saylor, this is what you're betting against. It's like if you're betting against Elon, right? It's very similar, right? Like, this is the person who's helming the ship, right? And this is what he's survived in the past. He is battle hardened. He is war hardened, right? So if you think, and I never forget this, I remember Pacific Bitcoin, I think it was 2022 or 2023. This was when Saylor first started his Bitcoin strategy. And this was at the bottom of the bear market. Mind you, his stock, again, went from $14, went all the way up to $100, and then went back down to $14. I never forget watching Saylor in the front row by himself. I think he had a laptop, and he was just silently watching every speech. And that was 2023, I believe. 2 years later, from 14, it went all the way up to $400. Like, what is that? That's a crazy return. I don't even know what that is. Like a 30x, maybe more than that.
I think it was like 27 or something.
27x.
I don't know. Either way, it's crazy.
A 27x. So again, vast majority of people that are buying strategy, they're not Bitcoiners. They're stonk maxis. And if you're a stonk maxi, you're looking at whatever Saylor is doing, and you're like, he's doing a darn good job. Now, does it make sense in this world of fiat? Absolutely not. Saylor's down on his Bitcoin investment. He's down like $10 billion.
I think it's a little more than that.
He's
unrealized gains. But hey, you're only down if you sell.
He's down. He's down, right? So he's down like what, like $10 billion, whatever. But the market is signaling that they like what he's doing and they have confidence in what he's doing. And markets are forward thinking and they're bullish on the future price appreciation of strategy. Because if they were bearish, the stonk would be back down to $14. So that's the reality. A lot of things to unpack here. Are you pricing your life in Bitcoin? Are you pricing your life in dollars? And if you're pricing your life in Bitcoin, if you're thinking about investing into something that isn't Bitcoin, you have to remember, is it beating Bitcoin's price appreciation? That's the fundamental question. Is it beating Bitcoin's hurdle rate? If the answer is no, that's not a good investment. It's not a good investment. And that's just a fact, right? So anyhow, I think we've covered this thoroughly. We've had a Saylor Monday. I like it. Saylor Monday. It's going to be a fantastic show. We have tons to cover today, ladies and gentlemen. We are first going to cover regarding the SpaceX IPO. Is that going to affect the price of Bitcoin as more liquidity as more capital gets drained out of Bitcoin and looking for better investments?
Yeah,
because
it's happening
again,
Friday.
If you are an investor and you're looking at Bitcoin's performance over the last 5 years, you're not that impressed. I would even go further than that. And I would say Bitcoin truly needed that euphoric blow off top, right? Because that really put the averages down. Bitcoin really needed that 200 or 250K in the last cycle, because I think a lot of people were disappointed, to say the least, where Bitcoin only pumped to 126K. Now, to be fair, Bitcoin went from 16K to 126K. But that, you only benefited from that if you bought the absolute bottom. What happened to all the people that bought in between, which is the vast majority of people? From a percentage basis, I think you're looking at other options and you're saying, hey, maybe these are, better investments than Bitcoin, right? So is the SpaceX IPO going to further cause downward sell pressure on the price of Bitcoin? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to be talking about the pardons, right? I always say this. I always get heat on the show. I'm going to stick to my guns. Elections have consequences. With the election of Donald J. Trump as president of the United States, we got Ross Ulbricht free. Also, with the election of Donald J. Trump, a lot of these aren't really Bitcoin entrepreneurs. I mean, you could say they're Bitcoin entrepreneurs, but Bitcoin/crypto entrepreneurs got pardoned that I would say were unjustly prosecuted because of the previous administration's warpath on the entire industry. We're going to talk about pardons today because we're not only talking about the Samurai Wallet developers' potential pardon. We're going to look at the Kalishi odds, or I always say that wrong. Kalshi odds. He's pretty high up there, but a gentleman by the name of Sam Bankman-Fried is also asking for a pardon from President Trump, which again, I think would be absolutely catastrophic for the Trump administration. So we have a ton of things to cover today. Guys, thank you. Welcome to the Monday show. I hope you're having a good time. Make sure to smash that like button. Get comfortable. Get something to drink. It's going to be a fantastic show. And we're going to be right back just after the break. Here we go.
Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent. straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 63,560 sats per dollar. I got to just shorten this.
Yeah, dude. All you need is price,
market cap,
block height, market cap
1.27, Bitcoin versus gold market. I'm going to keep that one. 4.23% and decline from all-time high, almost at 50%. If you're buying Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a 49.6% discount. So if you want to be vindicated with your uncle who's shoving it in your face and saying, ha, 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 look at my stonks, they're outperforming you. Brother or sister, this is the time when legends are made, when you buy the mother effing dip right now. That's what you do. That's what you do. You double down. You don't get scared. You double down. Are you in this for the money or are you in this for the revolution? That's the question I got to ask for you guys. Because if you guys are in this for the money, you guys are going to get shaken out when these types of things happen. You guys are going to get scared. You guys are going to buy into all the FUD and all the media that's saying Bitcoin is dead. It's never going to recover. That's what you're going to do. But if you're convinced that this is a revolution, if you're convinced about Bitcoin's superior characteristics as an asset, as a money, then this is an opportunity. That's all it is. This is when the tourists get left out. This is where mom and pop say, I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. I'm going to buy the SpaceX IPO so all those inside investors could dump on me. But hey, at least I get the SpaceX IPO, baby. Joking.
So true. So true, though. So true.
Joking. Just want to be safe. But let's get into today's numbers segment. Here we go. It's a great article from Seeking Alpha, and it asks the question, will Bitcoin keep grinding lower? I think we covered this in depth, and it's so funny. They have the 4-year chart. Look at that. The $60,000 mark is the next major psychological support and roughly aligns with minor production cost estimates. A clean break below it would likely mean Bitcoin continues to search for a lower bottom. In both time and price, that would be relatively consistent with the low zone of the 4-year cycle. Reclaiming 70,000 is the precondition for arguing the worst is priced in, and between these levels, expect range-bound chop driven by macro headlines. With no clean near-term resolution in sight around the Strait of Hormuz, a strong bullish catalyst is hard to come by. This is also why the SpaceX listing on June 12th matters more than it first appears. The IPO is set to raise roughly $75 billion at a $1.77 trillion valuation. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If it doesn't get more depressing than this, the SpaceX market cap at IPO is going to be higher than the Bitcoin market cap. And you want to hear the irony of all of this? Is that Elon holds 10,000 Bitcoin at Tesla, and I think it's estimated that SpaceX is holding around 10,000 Bitcoin as well.
I think it's more 18,000 at SpaceX, 10 or close to 11 at Tesla.
So Elon is playing the best of both worlds, baby. Anyhow, I also think that from an investment standpoint, we spent the whole initial segment on this conversation, right? The opportunity for the SpaceX investment was all the investors that got into the IPO initially. Does that mean that I'm not bullish on SpaceX in the long term? I'm extremely bullish. There's no other company in the world that could do what SpaceX is doing. SpaceX has launched more satellites into orbit than every other nation state combined. So clearly, they are a market leader. Clearly, they can do something that no one else could do at the moment. And we're not even getting into the space discussion. You think there's a lot of minerals on Earth? There's a whole lot of minerals floating out throughout the galaxy, right? And again, you're buying a company that, if you look at the trajectory, if you truly believe that humanity's future is amongst the stars, you're literally buying the number one rocket company on planet Earth that could literally land rockets, right? Like that's my personal opinion. Now, does this mean that I would sell my Bitcoin for SpaceX? Absolutely not. But again, I'm ideological. I believe in the revolution. Does this mean that you should be selling your Bitcoin for SpaceX? Perhaps, maybe. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do with your money. If you guys want to buy Dogecoin, that's on you. That's not on me for telling you otherwise. It's your money. You get to do whatever you want with your money. We've always stay stable with our message, which is Bitcoin's the best money that the world has ever seen. Bitcoin is the best asset the world has ever seen. As the world realizes that over time, Bitcoin is going to become a black hole where you're going to see a lot of these asset classes. They're going to move a lot of that capital into Bitcoin. That's the thesis. The base case for Bitcoin, I would say Bitcoin failed if it doesn't do this one thing, is reaching the market cap of gold. That's the base case of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold, that would put Bitcoin at $1.5 million per coin. I think that if Bitcoin doesn't do that, we need to have another discussion. I think right now, Bitcoin is at a crossroads. 95% of the Bitcoin supply has been mined. Bitcoin has underperformed the last two cycles. Underperformed to people's expectations. And I think those expectations were set absurdly high because of the 2017 bull run, which was when it was retail mania. There was so much stuff going on. That's essentially the era that Opti and I got in. But if you look at the 2017 era, Bitcoin ran up from $1K to $20,000. That's a 20x in 1 year. Bitcoin since then has not nearly performed to those those percentage performance spaces. If we're looking at it, what is the number one converter of Bitcoiners? Like, what makes people into Bitcoiners? It's not videos like this. It's not people tweeting on X that Bitcoin is the best money. It's not people saying, have fun staying poor. The only thing that gets more people into Bitcoin is number go up. Number go up is the catalyst. Number go up is what makes converts. If number doesn't go up, you won't get new converts. In fact, you'll get quite the opposite. You'll get non-believers. I think the world still hasn't figured out that Bitcoin is designed to go up forever. However, I will say this. I think right now, this next bull run that I think we'll experience in 2027, 2028, 2029, because that's how the 4-year cycle works, better be a good one. Because I'm hoping we see 300, 400, 500K Bitcoin. Because if we're going to go from 125 to 250K by the year 2028, 2029, like, I mean, boy, we got bigger problems. The miners have problems. The Bitcoin companies have problems. Everyone is going to have a problem.
We have a problem.
We have a problem at Bitcoin companies. So everyone is going to have a problem, right? Bitcoin is designed for number to go up. Bitcoin is not designed for Bitcoin to go sideways. And I would make the argument that it is designed for number to go down because, again, you need volatility for it to go up. So let's talk about the last two cycles for a second. Let me stop sharing my screen because and let me read this from James Lavish first, and then I'll talk about the last two cycles. James Lavish says, "Good evening," and he tweeted this last night, I believe. "I'm getting a lot of questions about whether my conviction has impaired my or has been impaired, or my thesis has changed about Bitcoin with its recent price weakness. The answer is an emphatic no. Why? Because I like to keep it simple and focus on first principles. While other assets are enjoying the warmth of the hot ball of money, Bitcoin will simply continue to reflect the debasement of all government-sponsored currencies over the long run. Nothing more, nothing less. Hope this helps. Have a great night." Now, fantastic. But ultimately, number needs to go up, right? Let's talk about the last two cycles.
Wait, before you do, this is such a peak bear market show.
Let's talk about the last two cycles. I'm on fire today.
Peak bear market show.
I'm on fire today, bro. Let's talk about the last two cycles. What happened in 2021? 2021, I would make the argument that we were destined to hit 100K in 2021. What happened? The China mining ban. And that's why we got that weird double top. The China mining ban happened exactly when the price of Bitcoin was going parabolic. The first run up, not the second run up, the first run up. And that caused as much as I think it's checkmate, he doesn't believe in this theory, but I'm sticking to my guns and I fundamentally believe in this theory. There is a direct correlation between the price of Bitcoin. Look it up. Don't trust, verify. There's a direct correlation between the price of Bitcoin in 2021, the peak, and the hash rate. You see the Bitcoin price peak, and you see the hash rate dump, and you see the price follow. Now, why would the price dump when the hash rate is dumping? Because those miners needed to sell their Bitcoin that they're mining in order to relocate to a more favorable jurisdiction. And that's exactly what happened. Within 9 months, the Bitcoin hash rate recovered, and now it's stronger than ever and more decentralized than ever. That's what I think happened in 2021. That's why I think we didn't get a parabolic top like we did back in 2017. Now you say, okay, Nico, you're making excuses. I mean, that's not an excuse. Like, it's the data. You could look at it, right? You literally see the price and you literally see the hash rate. That's what happened in 2021. What happened in 2024 or 2025? The ETF got approved. That's what happened. And for the first time in Bitcoin's history, we had an all-time high before the halving. That's what happened. So if you look at all the price action of this previous cycle, I think we could all agree upon this was a cycle. All the price action happened in 2023 and 2024. That's where the majority of Bitcoin's price action to the upside happened. And then we all had an expectation that because of President Trump, Michael Saylor's 100K party, we were going to get the classic euphoric blow off top in 2025. Now, I did mention this in the beginning when Trump got elected and Opti and I were on cloud nine because there was thousands of people watching the show. The Bitcoin price was going up, blah, 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 blah. And that was a euphoric top. I said, what worries me is that everyone and their mother expects the price of Bitcoin to go up at the end of 2025. That's not how markets work. because the market did the exact opposite of what everyone was thinking. Now, this leads me to my next point and the most bullish point. How do you feel right now? You're listening to my words in terms of my confidence, in terms of what Bitcoin needs to do. It's almost as if there's a loss of faith. It's almost as if the expectations that everyone had and weren't met were let down. It's almost as if people are looking for alternative assets because they believe they could outperform Bitcoin. All of those things were happening. You know when was the last time this happened in Bitcoin's history? Was when Mt. Gox exploded. You know what would have happened if you would have doubled down, if you would have stayed convicted? Ladies and gentlemen, you would have bought $300 Bitcoin. You would have bought $400 Bitcoin. You would have bought $500 Bitcoin. And that run up between 2013, 2014 to 2017, $300, $400, $500, all the way up to $20,000. What happened in 2013 and 2014? People lost conviction. People got scared. People stopped believing. The majority of people stopped believing that there was future upside. What I'm seeing this bear market, because of people's expectations of what Bitcoin should have done, is the same vibes. I wasn't there for that point, but I've talked to a whole lot of Bitcoiners. You think right now is what you're experiencing is darkness? You have no idea back then. It was the Wild West. Bitcoin didn't have support from governments and banks, and it didn't have major proponents that had millions of followers. There wasn't the Bitcoin standard. Hardware wallets were terrible at that moment in time in Bitcoin's history. All the infrastructure that exists today didn't exist in 2013, 2014. Now, let's talk about the peak of 2021, where it's 69K. Guys, there was no ETF in 2021. There wasn't a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House saying that he wants to make the United States the Bitcoin capital of the world. There wasn't a strategic Bitcoin reserve. There wasn't banks saying they're launching Bitcoin-related products. There wasn't banks saying, hey, we're going to custody Bitcoin on your behalf. Back then, when we made an all-time high of 69K, we were still being called criminals. And now we're below that by $6,000, and you guys are bearish? You guys are bearish.
Wait, don't project on us, Nico. Everyone remembers your bearish calls here, okay? We're still waiting for 30K, bro.
So, with all that being said, does this mean that the Bitcoin bear market is over? You guys know my thoughts about that. I've said it and I'll repeat it again. If Bitcoin maintains this channel of 80 to 60K, I said this when we were at 82K. If Bitcoin maintains this channel of 80 to 60K over the summer, over the next 3 months, I would strongly go out on a limb and say we probably hit bottom. If over the next 3 months we break down and we start making new all-time lows, meaning Bitcoin falls below 60K and it goes into the 50K region, I could pretty much say, yes, we're gonna hit a new bottom. No one knows where the bottom is right now. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're absolutely lying. But what I can tell you is that the only model that has held up to a T has been the 4-year cycle theory. It has not broken. And if the 4-year cycle theory continues to play out, we should find a bottom in Q3, Q4 of this year, meaning around October of this year is where we should see the final Bitcoin capitulation bottom. If the model holds up, I would say the model breaks if the price stays between 60 and 80K over the next 3 months. if that's the case, then I think we are truly in uncharted territory. That's my opinion on all this. I could be wrong, but I will take credit. So far, I've been absolutely right since I've been saying this since October, when everybody in the chat was calling me a bear. Opti was calling me names. We had Walker coming on the show. He was calling me names. I'm sticking to my guns, right? I see the 4-year cycle. It's playing out to a T. I remember when we hit the peak in October, it's the feeling of the 4-year cycle is broken 73K pre-halving.
Dude, don't trigger him. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
Technically, he's true. I mean, technically, he's right.
I've been saying this, and you're like, yeah, whatever. Chat says it, and now you agree. Crazy.
Yeah, but that remember though. Let me address that specifically. I do have a comeback to that specifically. Okay, so fine. What happened in 2021? We peaked because of the China mining ban. Why did we reach an all-time high before the halving? It was because of the spot Bitcoin. Is because of the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. Just for no other reason. That's why we reached an all-time high. That's why we didn't go parabolic in 2021. So I would say that the 4-year cycle's intact, but there are outside factors that could potentially impact the price of Bitcoin. One being a nation state banning all the Bitcoin miners within their borders, and the other, the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF, which allowed Wall Street to just flood into the space, right? So, I mean, those are two very big factors, if you ask me, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyways, the big takeaway from all this, F you. The big takeaway from all this is, where's your conviction? Are you in this for the money, or are you in this for the revolution? That's my statement to you guys, because the vibes are low. I think these are the worst vibes I've seen. These are worse vibes than when we hit 16K. The worst vibes at 16.
It does feel like 2020 vibes.
At 16, do you think so?
It, like, the sentiment feels pretty bad, but at the time in 2020,
it wasn't as bad, because in 2020 we knew that it was going to keep.
But that's what I was going to say. But like in our circles, we were all super hyped. We're like, this is the dip we've been waiting for, and now everyone's like, it's over. It's like the vibes are way, way bad right now.
The vibes are terrible. So that's the stress test. Can Bitcoin reach $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 per coin by the next halving? That's the question on everybody. Or sorry, not by the next halving. By 2029. Can Bitcoin do that? That's the question. And I'll leave it in your guys' in hands. Do you think Bitcoin could do that? Right? So anyhow, guys, there's going to be a next excellent section. Oh, by the way, I was talking about SpaceX, and I completely forgot to play the clip of Saylor talking about SpaceX as well. Let's check it out.
Let me just say a few words on the market right now. In the year 2026, there'll probably be $1 trillion of capital that's going to flow into AI and the hyperscalers. We can see it right now. In the last 3 months, in the next 3 months, $400 billion of capital is being raised by OpenAI, by Anthropic, by Google, by SpaceX. You're literally watching an $85 billion IPO in SpaceX, an $80 billion offering by Google. No one ever dreamed that the company generating infinite cash, Google, is going to go to the market and ask for 80 billion more. Anthropic's doing an $80 billion raise. So what you have right now is a massive capital rotation, $400 billion in just a matter of weeks rolling into AI. About 1% of that, $4 billion has rolled out of the Bitcoin ETFs over the past 14 days. You have a portion of capital. Clearly, people they're not financing the AI trade with all crypto assets, but 1 or 2% of the market is crypto. And there is a reallocation to get ready for these massive IPOs. that has created a downward pressure on the price of Bitcoin, which has fallen from 82,000 to 62, 63,000 over those 15 days. I think everybody on X or in social media oftentimes loses their minds when the price falls, but it's not a complicated reason why this is happening. It's a massive vacuum. Every single investment bank on Wall Street is out there marketing the Anthropic deal, the OpenAI deal, the Google deal, the SpaceX deal, and everybody is got to come up with $400 billion of cash. And they're selling credit instruments, private credit, public credit. They're selling software as a service companies. Anything that looks stable, they're selling Bitcoin. They're rolling into the hot new issues. And that actually is the primary dynamic, I think, driving the market this week, this month, and it'll probably continue as long as these mega IPOs come. In the history of the world, there's never been $80 billion IPOs, and we're getting like...
I'm gonna leave it at that. So you said I was coping.
No, dude, I was literally covering this story the other day. I literally covered this exact story on Thursday.
Like, when I'm hearing that, it sounds like an excuse.
Dude, Saylor's coping. Remember, he crashed the price himself. What are we talking about here? No, but I think the biggest point here,
4-year cycle is literally undefeated.
Cope.
Dude, I think
Dude,
I think it's literally built
Bro,
into this.
Quit repeating. Let's go to the next segment. Let's
be right back after the.
It's gonna be a 2-hour show here.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with 0 penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. All right, everybody, we are back. So I do want to talk about this. Elections have consequences, ladies and gentlemen. And a couple months ago, President Trump was asked in the Oval Office. Mr. President, this week, he was asked in the Oval Office by a Bitcoiner, I believe, a Bitcoin reporter, if he's going to pardon the Samurai Wallet developers. That was a big deal, right? If this was another administration, Ross Ulbricht would still be in jail, and this wouldn't even be taken seriously. Because at the end of the day, if you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. Prior to President Trump's election, our industry was not in the room whatsoever at all. Obviously, President Trump, as a politician, identified that. That's why he showed up to the Bitcoin conference. That's why he kept mentioning Bitcoin by name, because again, he was interested in the votes from the Bitcoin community. And again, if you're under the age of 30, I would say you have some type of exposure to Bitcoin and the other, I'll be nice, altcoins, right? So it's a huge voting block, right? And I would even go on a limb and say that because of the Democrats' stance on quote unquote crypto, I would make the argument that that could have potentially cost them the election, right? Like that's how strong of a voting block we are, right? And you know, it's really interesting. Maybe this is not connected. You see Hunter Biden, out of all people, calling fiat a scam and advocating for Bitcoin. I mean, that could be a market bottom signal. I don't know. Who knows?
Dude, we're gonna get tanked more. What are you talking about?
So Biden 2028.
Yo, some of his tweets were absolutely hilarious. I don't think I can repeat them on the show, but they were. I was having a good laugh at them.
Okay. So what's the update on that, right? So Pam Bondi, she was asked to step down. We have a new attorney general. And what are the betting market odds anticipating? They're giving it this is a lot higher than I would suspect. Right now, Keon Rodriguez, one of the Samurai Wallet developers, he has a 28% chance of being pardoned, according to the people that are putting money on the line, right? And he's in second place only to this guy. I don't really know what he's involved with. We're not a politics show, but the Bitcoiner, currently the betting odds markets believe he has a 28% chance of getting pardoned. That's more than Steve Bannon, right? And another one, which is quite depressing, Sam Bankman-Fried has currently, according to the betting odds, a 19% chance of getting pardoned. I think that would be a catastrophe for the Trump administration, because essentially it would make them equal, right? Like what was the crime that the Samurai Wallet developers committed? They created open source software that a small percentage of those users decided to use that for illegal reasons, and they were prosecuted because of that. They were made an example of because of that, right? There's a reason that Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared. If Satoshi Nakamoto would have kept around, I really believe he would be in jail right now, right? They were trying to make an example out of open source wallet developers. They started with the Tornado Cash guys. Once they set the precedent, then they went after the Samurai guys. If President Trump pardons both the Samurai Wallet developers and Sam Bankman-Fried, it would be a catastrophe. Why? Sam Bankman-Fried committed fraud. He got people absolutely wrecked. There's a big difference between the two. Very big difference. So I hope the Trump administration does not pardon the fraudster. And I hope the Trump administration does pardon the open source wallet developers. Now, it didn't help that they were on X basically, beating their chests and saying like we're untouchable, basically. That didn't help. And I believe that was used in the case, right? But still, regardless, they developed an open source tool to help with privacy. Why should they be held responsible if 3% of those users decided to use that tool for illicit activity? Like, it's like basically going after knife manufacturers and gun manufacturers and saying, oh, you guys are responsible for the crimes that were committed because someone used your knife or someone used your gun in a criminal act. Like, that makes no sense. Like, fundamentally, those are tools. The Samurai Wallet guys developed a tool that was used for privacy reasons. That was the primary reason of developing that tool. It wasn't a tool that was created to facilitate some type of money laundering. Also, I don't buy that argument either, because if you guys remember the TD Bank case, where this bank got caught laundering money for the Mexican drug cartels, like relating to fentanyl and like all this crazy stuff, they literally got a slap on the wrist, and they said, you got to pay this fine. And no executive from TD, are you trying to tell me they didn't know? Are you trying to tell me they didn't know? Like, the quantity of money involved in that was so ridiculous that, like, it's hard to look the other way. And remember, let's go back to 2008. My favorite example. No banker went to jail for what happened in 2008. And that caused significantly more damage to the middle and lower classes than anything the Samurai Wallet developers ever did. Anything that Ross Ulbricht ever did. So there's clearly a two-tier justice system. And what would make that two-tier justice system even worse is if they both pardon the Samurai Wallet developers and they pardon Sam Bankman-Fried. And not to mention, from Trump's side, as a Republican, Sam Bankman-Fried was one of the biggest Democrat donors, which I had Arthur Hayes on the show, and he told me, he said specifically, the main reason that Democrats are against quote-unquote crypto and Bitcoin is not because they're hell-bent on CBDCs. I disagree with him on that. He said that this was their poster boy, and their poster boy ended up being a fraudster. And that was the reason that they went so hard against crypto. It was to kind of save face. It was to save their reputations, right? So I'm going to read the breaking news here. FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried has formally applied for a presidential pardon after his 2024 conviction for fraud tied to the $10 billion collapse of FTX. He submitted the request to the Justice Department's Pardon Attorney Office, seeking relief after sentencing. Bankman-Fried, serving a 25-year term, was convicted of orchestrating the scheme affecting customers and investors. The White House and his representatives did not immediately comment on the filing. You know what would be worse than launching the Trump coin? Pardoning a guy that hurt a ton of people financially. The Samurai guys did not hurt people. I mean, you can make the argument, you can go on a stretch and say, oh, but they did because they facilitated this and then whatever. This guy single-handedly committed fraud to an extent that he even rug pulled Tom Brady. Right?
You can't rug pull the go.
I think Kevin O'Leary was even like, oh, this guy's a genius. This guy's really good. I think Mark Cuban was like, even that this guy's a genius. This guy's really good. Like, come on now.
Yeah, this tweet though. This tweet's funny. Just this video is unforgivable. This should not get him a pardon. Oh man, that's funny. Dude, gotta love crypto Twitter, Bitcoin Twitter, shitcoin Twitter.
But
any
anyways,
more thoughts before we move on?
Yeah. I do have some thoughts here. You said what would be worse if the Samurai Wallet devs got pardoned and Sam Bankman-Fried got pardoned. I think what would be even worse is if only Sam Bankman-Fried got a pardon. Now, I don't think that, just based on my general, view of what's going on, I don't think that the Trump administration will pardon SBF, kind of for the reasons that Nico laid out here. I don't think that's going to happen.
I also didn't think the Trump administration would launch
I agree.
Trump and Melania.
I agree, but I think this is more a Hail Mary throw from Sam Bankman-Fried here. Like, I think this is him being hopeful. So
bro,
we'll see. But
it's super depressing to me that the Samurai Wallet developer has a 28% chance of getting a pardon.
I don't put that much faith in prediction markets.
Sam Bankman-Fried only has a 19% and has a 19% chance. Like, that's really depressing.
I don't put that much faith in prediction markets like you do.
And then what is the conclusion? What is the conclusion if the Samurai Wallet developers don't get a pardon? Like, that would be really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a long shot as well. I think they're both long shots, personally. Obviously, I'm more rooting for the Samurai Wallet dev guys than SBF, but at this point where we kind of stand, I think they're both kind of long shots.
I think specifically, if a pardon does come, usually the pardons come a month or two before the president's term is over, right? So it's not politically damaging to Trump per se from an election standpoint because he can't run for office again. So usually when all these pardons get lumped in together, it's usually it's close to the end of his second term.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone said that was going to happen at the last Trump administration. And
no, but he had the hopes of running for re-election.
I get it, but I think this
of,
is still more cope.
He had the hope of running for re-election.
Yeah, that's true.
So he couldn't pardon everybody he wanted to. This time it's kind of like, dude, I got nothing to lose.
Well, but that's kind of the hinge of this conversation. You said he wanted to. I don't think he wants to. But hey, you know, maybe go Simon Dixon, financial industrial complex.
That's kind of scary, man, because that means that, like, even though we basically got him across the finish line, even though we got him elected, even though the amount of money that Bitcoiners donated to his campaign, right? Like, despite all of that, the Justice Department is still making an example of open source software developers. And then the precedent that sets as we continue the separation of money and state is incredibly scary.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree. And someone says pardon or no pardon is a non-story. Guys, if you talk to an average normie, they literally think that SBF is like the CEO of Bitcoin. I don't know if we got to break out the echo chamber. Like, we are still dealing with the stench of SBF and the FTX collapse. To an average person outside of our space, outside of being obsessed with Bitcoin, like, that's all they know about Bitcoin is that whole SBF FTX fraud. Like, when I talk to normal people, almost without fail, the FTX story gets brought up. It's totally a story. Without a doubt, we're still dealing with this. So this would be horrible.
100%. Guys, we're going to be right back just after the break. We're going to hit the culture segment. We have tons to talk about today. Opti's got something in the wings.
I think we're going to do a general vibe check. I'm going to do a general vibe check in the chat. General vibe check.
We're going to be vibing during the culture segment. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back after the quick break. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, we're back.
Yeah, before we do the vibe check, I forget when it was. What you were on Wednesday? I think we did Bitcoin bottom on Wednesday, and I remember the results, and it seemed like 51% said bottom is in, so 49% were like bottom's not in, and that was before we got the main crash. So how's everyone feeling out here? Because I'm not going to lie. As I came up on Friday, I was on the show and I was like, look, I'm getting a little nervous here where the price is at. Like, if we dip and break under 60K, or rather maybe broke towards like 58K and below, then I was like, yo, you know, Nico's right. 40K is coming. Like, it's going to be a long October or a long summer.
Dude, I think.
But vibe check in the chat. Are you? I don't know. This bounce, I'm kind of feeling a little bullish. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
look,
kind of feeling bullish.
I think that it. Like,
1 minute chart is bullish.
Look, I think that if Bitcoin holds between 60 and 80K for the rest of the summer, I think that's extremely bullish. We got very close to going under that 60K mark.
Well, we did. It broke to 59.4 or something like that.
I think the bullish takeaway here, ladies and gentlemen, is like we're more than 50% through this bear market.
I think we're way past that.
I think that's the bullish take here. Is like I think the only thing that's missing is capitulation.
I think that was the capitulation.
Maybe.
Dude, I'm just gonna counter signal you.
So maybe. I think the only thing that's missing is like a capitulation, and then
we saw that last week.
I think it's up to the then it's off to the races after that. And then what I'm going to be really paying attention to is what I've been saying earlier on in the show is like, can we see that $500,000 Bitcoin, $400,000 Bitcoin, that $300,000 Bitcoin by the next peak? I think that's really my biggest question for everybody is like, do you believe that Bitcoin can get to those levels? And before you start to doom and gloom, if you would have told someone in 2013 and in 2014 that Bitcoin was going to go from $300 per coin to $20,000 per coin, they would have laughed you out of the effing room. They would have not have taken you seriously. They would have been like, this guy's a lunatic. This guy's a maniac. The vibes were that low. The belief in Bitcoin as an asset was that low that the Mt. Gox thing was a disaster. And Bitcoin went from $300 to $20,000 in a couple of years. So right now, I would say is, can Bitcoin grow the F up? Can Bitcoin truly go to those $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 price levels? That's the big question. But we've been here before in Bitcoin's history. There's a very famous video of Meester, and I believe Bitcoin was at it's like $100 when he was saying this. But he was basically like, look, like if you buy, it was $100 and he was predicting $100,000 Bitcoin. And hindsight's 2020, you're like, bro, that's so obvious. Duh. I'm telling you right now, at $100, it was not obvious. No way. No way in hell. So that's kind of like where we are. Like that's the fork and the fork in the road, which creates an opportunity for the believers. Can Bitcoin truly get up to that $500,000 region, to that $1 million region? Can it actually do it?
On the next cycle or just in general?
I think, dude, over the next, let's be.
No, but the question you're asking.
No. Let me add
500K in general or this cycle?
Let me add color to this. I think that a decade from now, so 2037, 2036, if we are not at $1 million per coin, I would say that's a massive disappointment. And I'm expecting more, by the way. I think we should be 1 million and change. Larry Lepard said this the other day. I pulled up his tweet. And he was sticking to his guns. And he was basically saying that, here, I found the tweet.
Zoom in on that.
Yeah, let me read it. So he was responding to the Ape of Gold Street.
A gold bug.
Which said, where are these Bitcoin experts now? They started podcasts and launched paywall services and told everyone Bitcoin was going to 250K in 2025 and 1 million by 2030. Reality is it looks like it's heading straight to the bottom of the toilet, nothing else. Larry Lepard responded and said, it will still achieve $1 million per coin in the early 2030s. Nothing has broken or changed. I wrote a book about this and will be correct. Right now, it looks like gold in 2000 or 2015, but it is silly cheap in gold terms and a much better buy. So Larry Lepard believes that. I think the core of his thesis, and as what James Lavish was saying as well, and what Arthur Hayes said as well, is it's Knut Svanholm's famous meme, right? It's infinity divided by 21 million. As long as governments continue to print, right? Infinity divided by 21 million. The price of Bitcoin should keep going up forever, Laura, right? So, but again, that's easy to say. It's another thing to witness, right? It's another thing to actually live it and experience it, right? Now I can tell you what I believe. I think Bitcoin's going to continue to go up forever. I think right now we're in a period of uncertainty similar to 2013, 2014. I don't believe that this is similar to the 2022, 2023 bear market, because the hardcore believers in the 2022 and 2023 bear market knew this thing was going to rip when it recovered. This cycle, we have a lot of people, and I'm getting messages from OG Bitcoiners, right? That'll be like, dude, is this over? Like, and I respond back and I'm like, yeah, bro, Ponzi's over, trying to get
Ponzi's over.
Time to get a 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, time to buy SpaceX IPO.
Exactly, right? we just need a SpaceX sign.
Simply
right
Elon. Nico would love that.
Rockets launching. So
Wait. I got the perfect.
Rocket ship, get on board.
What?
Rocket ship, get on board.
Yo, simpler times.
That is literally the best, bro. I mean, the culture back then was fantastic.
Yeah.
The culture back then was fantastic. We need to get back to those days.
I did tweet on Friday.
We need to go back to those revolutionary
when the
times.
price was going down, I was like, yo, F it. Like, let's just tank it to get all the suit coiners out. Like, at this point, let's just clear the market.
Another bottom signal, by the way. Odell's back on Twitter.
Oh, that is a good bottom signal. Odell is back.
Gandalf and the Battle of Helm's Deep. Right? Where
You're so dumb. You're such a nerd.
They hold off the Uruk-hai throughout the night. And then Gandalf was telling Aragorn, like, I'll be back on the 5th day.
Someone meme that.
On the shining or whatever. Odell is Gandalf, bro.
Wow. Okay.
It could be Gandalf.
He needs a little more grades, though.
By the time Bitcoin's at $500,000, we'll all be old.
Dude, literally, I will have grades. No, I won't have grades, but Nico will have grades. Nico will look like Rick Rubin by then.
Oh, man. Listen, if Bitcoin reaches $1 million per coin, I'm going to look like Rick Rubin anyhow. All right, everybody. I do want to give a shout out to our conference sponsor, Mining Disrupt 2026. You're not going to want to miss it. It's July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida. Thank God I don't have to take a flight. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin. It is literally the biggest Bitcoin mining conference on planet Earth. Mining Disrupt 2026, Miami, Florida. You don't want to miss it. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video/podcast description. All the biggest miners will be there. Simply Bitcoin will be there. If you're trying to get a job in the industry, if you're trying to find out the latest and greatest and what's happening in the Bitcoin mining world, you don't want to miss Mining Disrupt. We hope to see you guys July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida. Get your tickets now before the prices increase. Use promo code SimplyBitcoin to get 20% off your tickets to Mining Disrupt. All right, everybody, that was today's show. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. Leave us a comment, and we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.